welcome to Korea This Week. I'm your host, Sang Kim, and today we have our colleague Kyle Ferrier, Director of Academic Affairs and Research with us. Thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Thanks for having me back.
Great. So last week there were a lot of North Korea headlines, pre all the Mueller's report stuff. So let's talk about some of them. So first, last week there was a huge news that broke out that said, according to KCNA, Chairman Kim Jong-un visited and observed a unspecific weapon being tested at a site. So according to them, they said it was a new tactical weapon. Do we know what it was? If it was actually a new weapon, what do we know?
It really could be anything. We really don't know all that much. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about what it could be, but I think what's really important is what it isn't, not what it is. And what it isn't is an opportunity for North Korea to show the United States international community that it is completely neglecting its at least verbal commitments to not testing long range missiles. So it doesn't really violate any of its previous promises. I mean, if anything, it's a way for which they can sort of calculate, showing that they're sort of displeasure with the way things have been going, and while at the same time not doing it too much to sort of throw off negotiations. But also at the same time, it could be something more related to the domestic audiences. It may not be intended for something internationally. If you remember back in November of 2018, we kind of had a similar moment when we were sitting in the office and Yonhap reported that there was this tactical weapons test. We didn't really know what it was. And yet, Moon and Trump and Kim met again at the end of February. So it shouldn't necessarily throw off negotiations.
Right. It seems like North Korea is really good at playing that game of provocation, but not crossing the line. So they do just enough so that it doesn't cause any trouble for them. So with that, so obviously it wouldn't affect the sanctions or anything, but would this affect the negotiation moving forward from now on?
I mean, it shouldn't. It could. With the Trump administration, anything really is possible. And I don't see it necessarily as something that's an obstacle to negotiations moving forward, which, like you said, is another example of Kim Jong-un and North Korea in a long line of historical instances where it pushes the line, but it doesn't necessarily cross it.
Right. So along with this testing of new weapons, North Korea also mentioned that they were not happy with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and how they wanted him out of the negotiation. So where did this come from, and why do they not like Secretary Pompeo?
They don't just like Pompeo. They don't like Bolton as well. Chesney also came out over the weekend criticizing Bolton's comments over the weekend, talking about how North Korea needs to show more signs that it is serious about denuclearization. I think this is part of a larger tactic or goal coming out of North Korea, where they are sort of critical of the working level negotiators and praising Donald Trump, who ultimately has the ultimate goal, the ultimate say in these negotiations. And it's sort of reflective of how there's been such little progress in working level talks. Actually, there was little progress going into Hanoi, but post Hanoi, there's arguably even less working level progress. It seems as if Steve Biegun hasn't been able to meet with his North Korean counterparts. It doesn't seem as if there is any talks advancing. So for the North Koreans, it seems to be not only expressing displeasure maybe for domestic audiences, but it signals that they really want to deal with Trump and Trump only. And assessing the Hanoi summit, I thought, well, Trump decided to leave. Walk away from the table. At least that's how he framed it. And maybe post Hanoi, this will focus more of the momentum on the working level talks as opposed to Trump and Kim. But it seems as if that really hasn't happened, and the North isn't necessarily willing to go put all that effort into the working level talks again. And it doesn't seem as if Trump is willing to do what it takes to empower Bolton and Pompeo. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But I think at the end of the day, Moon has a really important role to try and bridge these two positions between the North Koreans and the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't just to add to that. So it seems like the timeline of a comment on Pompeo came after his Senate hearing, which Pompeo agreed with the characterization of Chairman Kim as tyrant, but also seems like an excuse just to criticize Pompeo either way.
Right.
And like you said, it seems like North Koreans are only interested in dealing with President Trump at his level rather than, kind of undermining his staff. So along with that, and there's also a CNN report that said the President Moon has a message from President Trump to give Chairman Kim Jong-un. Any idea what the message is or how that could impact the moving forward process?
So what had happened in the White House, from what we were able to see, is that Trump stuck to his position of a big deal. What he said was we're looking for a big deal. The big deal is denuclearization. And then he said he was also open to these smaller deals, but he had to see what they are. So if you're Moon Jae-in, maybe you're hoping to convey something to Chairman Kim, something along the lines of what a smaller deal might entail. That would probably be the best scenario to move these talks along. We don't know what the message is, but for President Moon right now, the biggest obstacle in getting the talks moving is getting the U.S. moving. And until the U.S. moves, it doesn't seem as if North Korea wants to move. So the inter-Korean projects that have been established over the past couple of years have been stalled. The searching for remains along the DMZ, as well as some demilitarization of parts of the DMZ, have stalled since the fall of last year, as North Korea is really trying to sort of get more progress on the U.S. and North Korea diplomacy. And Kim Jong-un was supposed to meet with Moon Jae-in in December, but that meeting never happened. So it's going to be really difficult for Moon to actually pass along this note in person to Kim Jong-un, which is what Moon says he wants to do, if Kim Jong-un won't meet with him because there's not enough progress in the U.S. So it's like a negative feedback loop. You need to find some way to get out of it. If Moon is able to pass on this note to Kim Jong-un in another sense, maybe working level negotiations, working level talks like they've done before in the past, that might be one aspect. But it seems as if Moon's probably unlikely to meet with Kim Jong-un, even with this note, until there's some sort of progress made on the U.S. front.
Right, and then previous week we talked about how President Moon is open to meeting with Chairman Kim at any venue or any form of meeting, but it seems like there's no response back from North Korean side. Right,
so North Koreans Chairman Kim was supposed to meet with President Moon in Seoul this past year, and I think there was an invitation extended by December, but then it was never met. They agreed to meet soon in the Pyongyang Declaration, the joint statement that came out of that. But there hasn't been anything concrete to come out of that yet in terms of a meeting and time and place. That's why I think Moon has expanded his purview to say, I'll meet you anywhere at any time to have these discussions had. But at the same time, if those discussions are contingent upon progress with the U.S., then if there's no progress with the U.S., it just seems unlikely that Moon will be able to meet with Kim soon.
So while the Moon-Kim summit is kind of unclear, we know who Kim Jong-un might be meeting with this week. So last week we briefly talked about Kim Jong-un going to Russia to meet with President Putin. And the only thing that's confirmed so far by official sources is that the summit is along the way, but it would happen end of April. So there's nothing clear on the venue, exact date, and time, right? But there's also a lot of speculation on where they could be meeting, when they could be meeting. So what do we know so far?
Again, I keep saying we don't really know all that much. They could be in Moscow. It's more likely in the Russia Far East as Putin makes his way over to the region for the Belt and Road discussions in the area, and it seems as if that it's probably going to be in the Far East region. But in terms of the content, it's likely that they'll talk about the big economic projects or sanctions relief when it comes to North Korea. So when Russia gets involved in these, involved in North Korea denuclearization talks, its big tools that it pushes to sort of help advance the talks are rail projects connecting the Russian rail network to South Korea through North Korea, as well as a trans gas pipeline that will run between Russia through North Korea to South Korea, that would help sort of spur economic activity in North Korea. And then on the other side is sanctions relief. In October, the big news out of Russia then was North Korean, Chinese, and Russian officials got together and discussed sanctions, easing of sanctions on North Korea. So we're not really sure what exactly is going to be talked about, but in that sense, what we should expect is something along the lines of sanctions relief, and throwing in these big projects as a way which incentivize North Korea to denuclearize. But these things aren't anything new. They've been tried before, and the things have mostly stayed the same. So I think it's just another opportunity for North Korea to show the United States and others that it has other options. Yes. It's showing it has other options besides denuclearization through the U.S., and that sort of signals its displeasure with the way that things have been going, and sort of trying to push back against the U.S. believing, we have faith in sanctions that it will collapse, or at least bring North Korea to the table by itself, where North Korea is trying to show that that's not necessarily the case.
Right, absolutely. And since this is the first diplomatic summit after Hanoi, so this is very significant in what they're going to talk about. And according to different media sources, I think they're thinking, they think that the summit will happen this Thursday or Friday.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see, possibly out of Vladivostok. So we'll see, because we won't really know until it actually happens, and then we see it on the media. So with that, that's all the news that we have for today. And Kyle, do you want to tell us about our upcoming event coming this Thursday?
Sure. This Thursday we have an event with Yonsei University's assistant professor Jeffrey Robertson, who's coming in to talk about looking at how North Korea watchers, so media experts, analysts, government experts, academics talk about North Korea and the policy discourse in English and in Korean, and how that differences between the discussions in English and Korean contribute to different perceptions of North Korea in Washington and in Seoul, and how those different perceptions sort of shape the shared approach towards North Korea, and what the implications are for diplomacy with North Korea moving forward. I've read the paper. It's really interesting. If you can't be in D.C. for the program, it'll be live streamed. We'll have the video up later, and the paper will be up online this Thursday.
Absolutely. It will be live streamed on Facebook and as well as our YouTube channel. So if you can't make it in person, you can always watch it live. So that's this Thursday. And then on May 7th, we also have a very interesting event coming up. I can tell you just yet because we haven't sent the invitation. But stay tuned. We'll make an announcement on the website. And also, if you're not on our mailing list yet, please sign up on our website, keia.org. And with that, is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's it.
No? Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next Monday at 2 p.m. Bye!